All right, William, welcome to the Sipping Point.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. I'm so excited. I know you're dialed in straight from Sonoma, Merriam Vineyards, but I'm excited to talk to you about all things that you do there, wine and organic viticulture, biodynamics. But I always find it fascinating to learn about winemakers and where they started from. I'm just very curious. How did you come to the world of wine?
And it's funny you say that because at the same time, I never saw myself going into wine at an early age. As a winemaker, I did decide in high school that's what I wanted to do. It was being raised here in Sonoma County. I was fortunate enough to go to a high school that a lot of the families in the area had their children at the same high school that were in the wine industry. Became a looking at a way of a lifestyle. And it was a lifestyle choice in that, we get to drink wine. Family is really important to me. And so having dinners every single night with my family, wine was a big part of it. My friends' families, same kind of concept. And so it was one of those, I love to create things. And so in high school, I decided it kind of just fits perfectly that if I can create something that brings people together to share laughter, share a meal together, and spend time together, that was something that really intrigued me. And so I really wanted to pursue that path from that time. So,
Well, that's great. So you really did want that from a young age, and that's exciting. And I always say the closer you get to the actual grapes, the cooler the people are. I find if you always go to the vineyards, that's where you always feel at home and you feel comfortable. And the lifestyle you describe sounds like one that a lot of people are drawn to, but we can live vicariously through you. So I know you've made wine all over the world. You have experience and you brought that to Merriam Vineyards. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about what you did before Merriam, and then I want to hear a little bit more about what attracted you to be the winemaker there.
yeah, so I took kind of an interesting path on becoming a winemaker also. I went to college for agricultural business because I really wanted to learn the business side of the industry and kind of knowing how to use numbers to your benefit, and then kind of reinforce it afterwards. So as an ag business major, you were required to do a small work study, and so I took a whole semester off to do harvest here in Dry Creek Valley and kind of really just reinforce that this is what I want to do. I loved every minute of it. The long days, the hours, and the intense work. It was so fulfilling to watch something go from a grape all the way to this beautiful wine that's out in the barrel and aged, and the whole process. So kind of fell in love with it. After that, I decided to go finish school, and then I like to learn hands-on. And so the best approach to going about that is to kind of travel the world. You can kind of get 2 harvests in a year because we have the northern hemisphere and the southern hemisphere. So I did another harvest in Dry Creek and then went to New Zealand. Then I went to France. Then I went to Chile. And then I went to Napa and kind of bounced around and learning from other winemakers on their philosophy and their approaches. And all along the way, no one's really recreating the wheel. The concept of making wine is very basic. And in a way, it will just make itself on its own. It won't be good, but it will actually do it on its own. But really honing in on doing it well and nurturing a product that's already been growing for the entire growing season throughout the year, and just kind of guiding it was kind of my approach that I gathered from everybody else, and is less is more. And so kind of just taking a grape and really kind of showcasing that sense of terroir. And so that really kind of intrigued me into trying to building the characters that you see in the wines that we'll taste today and everything, and trying to elevate them without doing too much to manipulate them. I think that that's really important is that we try not to manipulate or change the structure of the wines. We really want them to showcase that sense of place. And Sonoma County is a beautiful place. Merriam Vineyards is a great place that has so much going on and so much life in there. And it really reinforces, my studies also were kind of really based off of organic, biodynamic, and sustainable. I think that is really important in growing grapes and in making wine and in product. So kind of all the studies around really kind of helped me gather what I wanted to see in a wine, and kind of help me look into the taste profiles that suit me. I make wines based off of how I like to drink them and hope that everybody else likes it.
Yeah. And it sounds like even families where, the kids grew up in the business, the families tend to send them away to go work at these other wineries in different countries because it seems it's so important to get those different points of view, see what other countries are doing, other wineries, and just learn from different people and then bring that all back together. Now what you do is kind of culminate that together at Merriam Vineyards. So let's go ahead and because we have 3 wines that you shared with me, and I want to make sure we get to all 3. Let's go ahead and talk about the Fume Blanc, which was the first wine that you sent your white and made with Sauvignon Blanc and Semillon, classic blend for a white Bordeaux, if you want to think of it that way, but also in California for Fume Blanc and Sauvignon Blanc. So what is your vision if people know they already like Sauvignon Blanc, but they're like, Fume Blanc, what do we have going on here? What is your style?
Yeah, so I mean, it kind of comes full circle to everything that I was doing on my travels also. I went to New Zealand, which is very predominantly Sauvignon Blanc, and so kind of really gathered some information on looking into the varietal on its own. But then after that, I followed it up by going to France, and I was in Bordeaux when I was doing that. And I was actually fortunate enough that the winery or the chateau that I worked at, their family owned a barrel cooperage. And so I kind of looked into more on what you're seeing here. When you're a cooperage, you love oak, right? So you want more people to have more barrels and everything. When I got done with working harvest, I got to go travel around, go to all the great chateaus that are in the area. But we always tasted new barrels. We went to a couple areas that were predominantly Sauvignon Blanc, and tasting 100% tasting Sauvignon Blanc and 100% new oak really was kind of eye-opening to me in the way that, I really like this. This is really nice. It's really not aggressive, but in the way that, it's very mouth drying, and it's something that would need some age to it. But then looking into coming back here, Fume Blanc was kind of picking up. Robert Mondavi introduced it into the area, where Fume is a term for an oaked wine. So it can be a number of different white varietals that will just put into oak and aged for a certain amount of time. But I focused on what we have here also is Sauvignon Blanc. But then knowing, the Bordeaux kind of style of white wines, we have about 90 vines of Semillon on property also. And so putting that blend together is always really fun. Just a small little amount, and it's kind of like being a chef, just adding your nice little finishing touches to these things. So we put together this nice wine that we actually ferment the Sauvignon Blanc and the Semillon separately, but we ferment them in barrel. And so we press straight to barrel, and then the fermentation takes place in there. And then we age them for about 10 to 11 months before we bottle it up. But what really happens is it kind of caramelizes some of the flavors. So even though you have the nice bright acidity on the wine, you get a little bit more of oxygen going in there. It tames things down. It's not going to be as sharp as like a stainless steel Sauvignon Blanc would be. And it's got a little age behind it. And so usually when we have age going through there on the white wines, we don't have a lot of skin tannin, even though Sauvignon Blanc is a thick skin grape varietal. So adding that extra tannin into the wine creates ageability for the wine. So this wine actually does really well over the next couple of years, rather than having a quicker flip on a Sauvignon Blanc that was just done in stainless steel.
Yeah, and it has a little bit more roundness, obviously, than you would see on a Sauvignon Blanc without the oak, without the Semillon there. So you can think about maybe some bigger pairings. I don't know, your favorite food. So this, you could see this with a meatier fish or your white meats. It just allows you a little bit more than kind of the straight seafood route that you think of, with some lighter Sauvignon Blanc.
100%. And then even on that side where, just they bring all the different places that I've been to, but like Chile, the whole country's on the coast, and so it's one of these things that seafood is really important. And so seeing how wines were paired with different meals really kind of goes into the back of your head on what kind of direction you can see these going. And again, every wine serves its own purpose, right? And so there's certain things that you would want to pair with them, but some things that could be, not the normal actually pair really well with it also. So, but yeah, a lot of fish does really well with this, seafood in general, but sushi does really well with it also. But I had it on Sunday, and I had it with, some grilled chicken and some lamb chops, and it actually pairs really well. It does really nice. It kind of cuts through some of that fattiness there because it's got a little bit of acidity and it's refreshing. And like on a nice warm day when you're out with the family and everything, it's always fun to pop.
That's great. And you mentioned organic, sustainable, and biodynamic, which I know there's a lot there. We could
There's a
do
lot.
2 hours worth of podcast, but let's just start with organic. If folks are looking at your bottle, how can they tell that it's organic from the bottle, just looking at the bottle? And what do they know that you're doing in the vineyard that's good for the wine and good for me as the wine drinker?
Yeah, no, it's great to talk about this because Merriam Vineyards has been farming organically for 15 years, which is a long time, and that's something that I feel like we were ahead of the curve in the way of farming organic and actually putting the extra time and effort into what we're growing and what we're putting into the land. And it was recently that when I came here, I've been here for about 5 years at Merriam Vineyards, certified the winery organic. There's this side of things that people don't see, is that like even though the vineyard's certified organic, to produce a wine that says made with organic grapes on the back of the label, the winery actually has to be a handler and we have to certify it. So we did certify it. We've gone through all the steps. We are now producing wines that are made with organic grapes, certified on the back of the label. And we're really proud of that. So it's a lot of work and it's a lot of thought that goes into what goes into the vineyard and what goes into the winery and what's happening. And I think that, the consumer should recognize that going forward in the way that we want a clean wine, right? We want something that's
right,
good for you. And I know there's a lot of things going on in the world that people, talk about how it's all going, but these wines are about as natural as it's going to be. And so having that thought of we're not, I always like to say, we don't paint by numbers here. And so it's not on April 1st, we go through and we prune, right? We're letting Mother Nature kind of tell us when things are ready. And so we're always boots on the ground out in the vineyard. And when you're walking a vineyard all the time, you want to feel good about walking the vineyard and knowing that you're not walking through a bunch of pesticides and a bunch of things that are trying to kill off other things. And I have my dog all the time. We have all kinds of animals on property. We're concerned about everybody's life, and so farming organic is really kind of a labor of love and kind of a tribute back to Mother Nature and giving back to the land. I like to see bugs in the soil, that's really good. That's more carbon coming out of the air that's going back into the soil. We have all these things that can rectify a lot of the bad problems that we had. Just moving forward, just not knowing that we're not spraying any Roundup on the ground, and and stuff that's just, we know that's not good for us, isn't getting leached into it and going into the grapes, which it turns into the wine, and then that's what you consume. So when it's certified organic, it really is a statement of passion and wines that are clean and good for you. So,
and will it say that on every bottle, or it's more about knowing the vineyard and knowing that the vineyard is certified?
So we are in the we have here certified at the winery right here. We have 11 acres. We have Chardonnay, Sauvignon Blanc, Pinot Noir, and Semillon that are certified on property. Moving forward, we are taking all of our other wines made with organic grapes. But again, there's a life cycle on the wines. We age them in barrel, and so it takes a little bit longer for these to be released. This is a new product that we are certified, the winery and the wines recently. So our 24s will definitely have made with organic grapes on there. Some of the tweeds will have it on there. And then moving forward, we're taking them all in that direction. And the Merriams are just great people, and they just really care about this area, and it's good to us, and we want to be good to it.
I love that. And it made me think of something, and I just want you to help me dispel this myth that people have. I noticed on the bottle it says contains sulfites, which every wine does, because that's part of the fermentation process. And then many producers use a tiny bit more to preserve the wine so it doesn't turn color or grow bacteria. But there's a myth amongst consumers that I keep trying to shoot down, that European wines, so wines made in France or Italy, don't have any sulfites. But in America, we just love to throw the sulfites on there like crazy. Can you help me dispel this myth, since you've made wine in both places?
Yeah, so no, there's going to be, everywhere's got different regulations also of what the government's like telling you that you need to put onto a. Sulfites are very common in the way that it's an antioxidant also. So it's something that goes into to preserve the wines. There are different, even getting into what we were just talking about on organic. there are certain levels that you have to stay underneath to be able to put made with organic grapes on the back of the label. So everywhere is like you're just playing, you're utilizing what you can and can't do. And so, but at the same time, I'm pretty sure a glass of orange juice has more sulfites than a glass of red wine. So it's one of those things that, even though it's on the label right up in front of you, like people like to think that, that's why their headaches are coming and they're getting this. And me personally, I don't think that that's the main culprit behind it. But I do think that, like it's important to a certain degree. You don't want to take the levels way too high and then, like it would ruin the wine. So we're using very minimal amounts, but we're trying to create something that'll last a long time. It does go out into the vineyards. There's the sulfur, and that's worldwide also. That is something that, is a common practice. It is something that can protect it. Sulfur is very natural. It comes from the ground. And so it's one of those products that we can utilize.
Love that. And when I think about Sonoma, of course, I think about Pinot Noir. And that is one of the two reds that you sent for me to try. So I'm excited about that. Let's talk about this Pinot Noir. And then maybe we can also, after tasting it, talk a little bit about how biodynamics is different from organic, and just so people can kind of visualize what that means.
Yeah,
I'm excited. I'm a huge Pinot Noir fan, and I was excited that you're sharing this one with us.
Yeah, Peter Merriam's a big Pinot Noir fan also. So when he bought the property here, he originally started with Windacre Vineyard, which is our estate vineyard down the street. It's about a half a mile down the road. That was the original vineyard that the Merriam family came out to purchase when they're from the East Coast. And so they came out to visit and they purchased the vineyard. Wanted to get into wine. It was, I guess we'll get into that on the next wine, but it was Merlot dominant. It was a Merlot vineyard. But being in Sonoma County, and Peter really enjoyed Pinot Noir. When he bought the property here to build the winery, the first thing that he wanted to plant was Pinot Noir. So we have about 5 acres here on property that are certified organic. There's 5 different clones of Pinot Noir in there. And it's really just a beautiful Pinot Noir that's situated in the northern tip of Russian River. And so why that's important is that the Russian River is the gateway to the coast. And so the inversion layer, so the fog comes rolling in on the Russian River, and then it also retreats back out on that same river. And so the further up you go, usually means that we're getting nice, cool mornings, cool evenings, but at the same time, we get the most sun exposure. So the fog is rolled out and we're seeing the sun first. And, we're talking like hours makes differences, right? So we're doing degree days on how many hours you get. So having that extra, 1-2 hours a day of sunshine really changes the profile of the wines. We have clones 667, 777, 115, Ardent 23. So really looking at kind of like a Dijon style Pinot Noir. We have a Swiss one, 23, but it is great to have those because even though they're all Pinot Noir, they have different characteristics. There are certain qualities, there are certain attributes of each one of the clones that really come together. So we're looking for a blend that kind of harmonizes. And so if we have something, that's a little bit more spice on the 777, where there's going to be a little bit more, red fruit on 115. So all these things go into my head when we ferment them all separately and then barrel age them separately. And then we put together a blend. Even though this is a single vineyard, a lot of extra time and attention goes into creating this blend for this wine. And it really showcases the area and the organics that we're doing here. It has a lot of different things, a lot of complexity to it. So like first sip to last sip, it's going to keep on evolving in your glass. And that's all by design. So, yeah.
And pretty small production, only 200 cases, I believe.
Only
I was reading.
Cases. Yeah, we do a lot of small lots. We have a lot of different wines that we produce here, but a lot of things that I'm a small winery as well, and it's one of those things that we do a lot. Even though we have X amount of wines, there's exponentially more varietals and lots and different things that we do. We try to ferment. We do a lot of little small lot fermentations and barrel aging, and then most of the wines, even though they're single varietal, will be blended based off of taste and going through and analyzing each one barrel by barrel and putting together a blend that tastes really good together.
And it does. This is delicious. Yeah, this is really balanced and very elegant. And I love that. All of the different components are working together. Speaking of that, biodynamics. And I know biodynamics, I always say it's like organics on steroids. It's kind of like a religion. People don't really understand all the things, burying the horns with the manure and all these different preparations. If you were to explain to, someone who's visiting the vineyard or listening today, how biodynamics is incorporated at Merriam Vineyards, give us some examples of how that works.
Yeah, so I mean, we are not certified biodynamic, but we do have some practices that go on here, and biodynamics is really kind of based off of a thought process that everything naturally occurring has effects on everything else. And so we can utilize, Mother Nature, utilize the bugs, we can utilize the animals to accomplish the tasks that we're doing. I wouldn't say more efficiently with technology, but at the same time, there is a natural way and progression that we can focus on. There are times of the year where, we have seasons, right? You go through summer, spring, fall, winter, and everybody feels them, but they're not really taken into consideration. And it's like the earth is spinning. There is a moon that goes, we have a tide that goes up and down. All these little things that are just something that we just live with every day have effects on how plants are grown. There's reasons that the grapes go into a dormancy throughout the year. And so there's times that, it's really focused on strengthening the roots. And so taking all this calendar that has been put together and utilizing the cow horns and the different teas that you can put out there and the silicas that you can use that are prism based that can actually promote, a little bit more sunshine to go to the leaves to ripen the fruit, like all the little things that go into it. You basically create your own ecosystem inside your farm, right? So the concept of the cows eating the plants on the ground in there and, and then putting it back into the soil creates this kind of biodynamic kind of culture that starts to grow. And so it's something that you can create a lot of health in your vineyard and then and recycle and reuse. And so it's a lot, but it's really beautiful when done right.
Lovely. And it is beautiful. Obviously, folks can go to merriamvineyards.com and check out your wine club, or if they're going to be out in Sonoma for a visit next time. All right. So your last wine comes from a very special vineyard. I think you said it was one of the first vineyards.
It is the first. So this is our Windacre vineyard Merlot. Yeah, just reinforcing what we were saying about coming out and visiting, we actually just finished up a outdoor courtyard. So we did a kind of an outdoor remodel. And so a lot of things have changed in the last couple of years. And so it's really
great.
It's a really fun tasting, really fun experience.
All right. So tell me a little bit about this Merlot and specifically from this vineyard. I'm assuming now, I know we've all seen the movie Sideways where, they won't drink any effing Merlot, but I think that we all kind of laugh at that because at the end of the movie, he's drinking the famous Cheval Blanc, which has a lot of Merlot in it. So, Merlot just kind of became the butt of the joke at one point, but I hear that it's back and it's back strong. So I was excited you sent a Merlot.
Yeah, no, we're believer. I'm a believer in Merlot. It's actually one of my favorite varietals. I do think that weird enough, that movie did have an effect that really kind of hurt the Merlot industry in the United States. But at the same time, there are areas that have been Merlot dominant, mainly like Saint-Emilion and Pomerol, that have been creating beautiful wines for hundreds of years and just really kind of focused on that. And I think that it got a bad rap. But at the same time, that movie came. So when the Merriams bought the vineyard, the movie hadn't come out yet, and the movie did come out, and they watched a lot of their friends around in the area pull their Merlot out and start planting Pinot Noir. And one of the coolest things when I got here was that knowing that, the Merriams were dedicated to the vineyard that they had. They did do some replanting, some more Bordeaux varietals, but never got rid of the Merlot and stayed true to it. Peter was a wine shop owner over on the East Coast also, and loved, the European Merlots that were coming out there. So I think that Merlot, when it's taken care of and nurtured and done right is absolutely stunning. And I do really love this vineyard. And I think that the way that they created it and the way that we go about it and just really giving it the attention that it needs hones in on some of those is really beauty. It's really kind of more of like a silky kind of style of wine, even though it has some structure behind it. It still has a little bit of more of a smoothness, that's something that is more approachable earlier on even though it can age and it gets better with time. And like, it kind of, same thing, caramelizes a little bit more as it ages in the
Right.
bottle. But, the balance on it and the way that we farm it, I pick based off of taste, which a lot of people do, in ways. So numbers are a guideline, but not, it's all about taste. When the grapes taste balanced is when we'll make the decision. And for the most part, I think one of the most important things that we can do is to retain that natural acidity, right? So they start out being a bunch of acid, malic and tartaric acid in there. And then as they mature, more sugar accumulates and the acid goes down. Well, I think that there's a balance. Instead of taking it too far and trying to get too over extracted, we pick at a right point, but at the same time, I want the natural acid, so I don't have to add anything back to it. So it's a true reflection of the vineyard on its own. And I think that like in this vineyard and being in northern tip of Russian River, going back to what I was talking about, having that extra sun exposure, we still have the cool mornings. And this is a thinner skin red wine grape. And
right,
it benefits from a little bit of a cooler climate. So kind of the best of both worlds of being in this area is having those cool mornings and evenings, but then having that plenty of sun exposure. So it always creeps up on me though, because it's like you get done with Pinot and you think you have a little bit of time before you have to start harvesting the bigger ones, but the Merlot is always right behind it.
This is delicious, and it really does remind me of a right bank Bordeaux, which is where, Merlot is more predominant. And when I visited there, I know the winemakers expressed similar to you in that, you have your tools and you can measure the bricks or the sugar content of the grapes. But they said, I know when it's done, when I taste it and I taste the seed and I taste the grape. And I know immediately, no matter what the number is, I can tell via taste. So I love that because, there is an art and a science to winemaking. So, the two kind of have to come together. So it's neat that you do that as well.
And every year is different, and that's the biggest thing is, everybody remembers all the different years and what's going on in the vintage and everything. But at the same time, every year is unique. And how long was winter? How much rain did we have? How many days over 100 did we have? All these little things play into the growing season of wine. And you have one shot every year to try to make the best possible wine you can with these grapes. And we do a right bank wine called the Right Bank, just as a kind of a tribute to the Right Bank over in Bordeaux, also where we blend in. We have Cab Franc also, and so we do a blend, and it turns out really nice as well. But we have two other single vineyard Merlots also. So I really do think Merlot is back, and we're really trying to bring it back. And so it's
you and I will do it.
It's really, I do love the varietal by itself, and so we do put a lot of focus into it.
Love that. Well, here's a question for you. If you're not drinking your own wines that you make, what can I find you drinking around the dinner table with your family?
Yeah, no. I like to try a lot of different things, and so I do have a lot of peers that are friends around here. I do like to explore and see what they're creating. I like Oregon and Washington. I did go to Portugal last year for, to go see the cork forest and see the harvest and everything. And some of the white wines coming out of Portugal are absolutely fantastic. And it's one of those that, a lot of countries share a lot of varietals that are out there. And, we have them that we here in the States use a lot of, French varietals and stuff. But, in Portugal, they've kept a lot of their varietals specifically to their country. And some of the white wines that were coming out of there were absolutely mind blowing. So, if you ever get a chance to try some wines from over there, that it's stunning.
I totally agree. I went, I think 3 years ago it is now. And I had already tasted some reds here and of course port, fortified wines, but I was blown away by the whites. Even some of the sparkling wines were delicious as well. So and they're so unique, and it's a beautiful country and they have beautiful wines.
Yeah.
Just like yours.
Yeah.
Well, great. Well, this has been so amazing, William. Where can folks go if they want to connect with you and your wines? What's the best way?
Well, best way is to come to the winery here in Sonoma County and in Healdsburg. Come do a tasting. Let us know that you listen to the podcast, and we'll set you up and out here. And I'll come and visit with you. But the best way would probably be online, which would be at merriamvineyards.com. Well, and it just goes into, you need to experience the vineyards that are here, that are surrounding, and what I've been talking about on being organic and seeing how natural things are around here. And then when you taste the wines, you can put a sense of place into your experience. And that's the beauty of wine. There's so many wines that I've had over my life that I remember exactly where I was and what I was drinking. And that's because of the time and the place and the experience that you're having. So having a glass of Merriam wines here at Merriam is definitely the best way to go.
All right. Well, I'm putting it on my bucket list now. William, thank you so much for coming on The Sipping Point and sharing these great wines with me.